You know what? Okay, thank you. It
Oh,
went away. um, so negotiation between Klay Thompson and the Warriors froze over. Essentially, what they were talking about is Klay was seeking out 3 years. He wanted 3 years. That's what him and his agents were discussing.
yeah. And,
Um,
nobody wants to give him 3 years. They
and
only
no
wanna
one
give
wants
him
to give him
2.
3 years because
Yep.
he's 34 years old. 3-year contract. He'll run into 37. Be 37 by the end of that contract. And from my understanding, I think after this is Clay's actually like last contract. I don't think he's going to be playing after 37, 36, or whatever contract that he has. So if you're a team that's looking to go out and win and you want to sign him, you don't want to sign him for more than years that you need to be signing him for and for extra money as well. Because you know how much, no offense, baggage he comes with, and I'm gonna be so real. Um, with Clay, it's a matter of age, it's a matter of ability, and it's a matter of where he is mentally. And I think that last
Mhm.
point about his mentally thing is the most important because we seen him this season. He was like part of the season, he was very like he was mentally checked out because he didn't understand his role with his team. He didn't understand how to contribute, and he was just getting in his own way during the season as well. Um, and that really just hurt the Warriors, and it brought a massive how do I word this? I forget what it's called. Magnifying glass to the Warriors organization and just in
Mhm.
the league about what is Clay's future going to look like? Is he going to re-sign with the Warriors? And they try to offer him a 2-year, 48 mil extension, which actually in hindsight is insane to actually get Klay Thompson. And he rejected it, thinking that he was going to be able to get more money in the market. But now he's in a situation where Orlando doesn't want to give him more than 2 years, and neither do the Warriors. I think the Warriors would like him for him to stay, but at a reasonable price. Um, you guys know like what kind of situation the Warriors are in terms of money, trying to sign guys, trying to use this last bit of juice that they have before it really, really ends for them. Um, but what do you guys think like Clay's future is going to look like with or without the Warriors? Like where could he go? Where could he possibly sign to?
Well, it's funny because the team that we talked about during the season was really Orlando, right? Like I mean, this team that has a lot of spacing problems and a lot of defense. And, at this point of Clay's career, he's more of a volume 3-point guy who his defense has really regressed. He has moments where he can play good defense, but again, it's not consistent. So putting him in a situation like that where it's a bunch of young guys and athletes who can run, play defense around him, and him provide the spacing for that type of situation makes sense. Also for a younger team to have a vet guy for them to look up to. I thought for Klay, that situation made the most sense, but it complicates things when he's looking for that third year. I feel like a lot of that is because Draymond got a third year and he wants the same type of grace, but unfortunately, Draymond just carries more value than Klay Thompson when he's not crashing out. So,
Mhm. When he's
yeah.
not crashing.
So that is a big if.
I actually want to show some film of PG because I'll be honest, I'm not really the greatest PG fan. I'm not like fond of his game in its entirety, but
He's definitely slowed down last
for
couple
sure,
seasons.
100%. I think there's some aspects of his game that just are not as prevalent as they once were. One being his explosiveness isn't really there. He's not as athletic as he used to be. Doesn't get downhill as much. But I think his jump shot making ability is still there. He shot 1.06 points per possession on pull up threes this season, and he shot an outstanding like what was it, a 1.44 on just jump shots. So like he was 45% off just the catch, which was really good this year. And I think in a situation where it's similar to the Clippers in terms of there's movement shooting, you'll have a good place setter in Draymond Green. I think he'll be able to actually replicate some of the shooting ability that he has. And I think it'll be interesting for the Warriors to actually have a secondary who can play in the pick and roll and shoot pull up threes like that too, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he's still a respectable presence on the floor. His shot IQ sometimes is a bit questionable, but I do find it interesting to see how he would fit in the Warriors system with those movements at all. And that being said, I don't know how someone like Brandon Ingram would fit on our team.
I think the problem with Brandon Ingram, KB, is that while he shows signs of being a pretty good on ball playmaker, he can shoot threes, but that's really not his game. He's more of a mid range oriented player. The biggest problem is what Brandon Ingram is as an off ball player and how he fits in with other good, teams and players. We saw multiple examples of that this season. even in the playing game where Zion had 40 points down the stretch, BI wasn't playing, right? Like their best lineups featured when he was not on the floor. And I just think that for BI, he's much better suited to be in a location where the ball is going to be in his hands more, because that is what makes him better as a player. But does that make us a championship team by adding him? He would have to be a completely different player than what he is now. Even in Team USA, which again is a completely different environment, right? I understand that. He struggled mightily, and I don't think that that's a random thing. I do think that's a part of who Brandon Ingram is as a player.
I'm not gonna lie. I have a few like positive notes. I think he's obviously a good secondary. I think besides Steph, he would be decent as just a shot maker and creator for himself. In terms of like stylistically and how the Warriors would fit, I don't think it would be that great because he's all like he's mid range. He operates in the mid range a lot. Even though he would like, I guess he would technically have space on the floor. It just wouldn't be like conducive for him to be in that area a lot. I think the Warriors are more so looking for like, let's focus on our perimeter and being able to attack from it, and then
Yeah.
also being able to kick out from it as well. So him operating in the mid range a lot, I don't think is really ideal for the Warriors. Now, his defensive upside with the Warriors and his length could be a positive to look at, because if you're somehow able to maintain Wiggins, or let's say you not even maintain Wiggins, if you replace Wiggins with Ingram, you're getting basically a better mid-range scorer than Wiggins was, a worse three-point shooter, better self-creator, and he
And
would
a worse
probably be.
defender.
I don't know, honestly. With the Warriors, you think he'd be worse than Wiggins?
BI compared to Wiggins, yes. I don't think he has proper positioning most nights. I think off the ball, he falls asleep a ton. He has skills to be a pretty solid defender, but he's never quite put it together in an overall meaningful way still.
That's how, I'm not gonna lie. That sounds like Wiggins before we got him, and
It does.
I'll be real.
Yeah, but also I feel like another part about Ingram is just availability, because this dude has not.
He gets hurt more than Wiggins. It's like, wait,
yeah, I
wait.
was
He
actually
has not,
gonna
his
get to that,
healthiest season was the shortened year in 2021, where he only missed 11 games out of the 72. He hasn't played over 60. He hasn't played over 65 games since his rookie season.
I was gonna get to that. His health is a bit of a concern. So those are some of my concerns with him. Funny enough that you brought up health, because the other player I was actually gonna bring up was also dealing with some health issues as well, and he's aging. Jimmy Butler. That's a name I've been hearing around for the Warriors to actually go and
That I do not understand.
yeah, I don't understand that either. From an aspect of continuity, from an aspect of what the Warriors are trying to do, it just doesn't make sense. I'm not saying Jimmy Butler is a bad basketball player. He's a fine basketball player in its entirety, but replacing that, because you got to think about it like this, chat. You're replacing, or you're basically replacing Klay with someone else. You replacing Klay with Jimmy Butler is insane. You lose so much value. And the reason why I'm saying you lose so much value is because offensively you lose a lot of spacing. Like, I'm not I've been a Klay hater for this past year, I guess, but I'm not gonna deny what Klay brings to us in terms of offense. Y'all know how good of a spacer he is for us, how good of a movement shooter, and being able just to get up that volume at a respectable amount is not something that you can find in this league. That's why he still has a lot of value at his size and what he does. So when you lose that offensively, it's bad. Even if he does go over 10 spiral, I'll be real. Because he's still a 40% three-point shooter on high amounts of volume. And even though his translation in the postseason is shaky, you still need that, because even if it's shaky, teams will have to respect that.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, it's a little bit weird for the Warriors. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like we're just in another gray area again, where like last season we moved Chris Paul, or we moved Jordan Poole to get Chris Paul for contract issues. And I was like, okay, I understand that, but we could have still got Kristaps Porzingis, who was also an expiring, and you could have just extended
Such a fumble, dude. We should have got
NBA champion Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, NBA champion Kristaps Porzingis.
He get hurt in the playoffs.
Barely contributed. You got Chris Paul, which I was mad at, but then the season happened, whatever. Chris Paul played fine. And not to go to him, you still don't know what you're doing with him. And that's, to me, chat, and to the people listening, that's my biggest problem. Is that the Warriors, there's been more talk from Warriors, like people like us, like people on Twitter, about who the Warriors should get and names that we should be in contention for than us actually hearing it from the Warriors. Because before that Slater report that I just showed you guys previously, there was no talks. Why we should be names for everything. I don't care if it's names for LeBron James. We should be in talks. Like I want to hear.
Yeah, as long as Steph exists on the roster,
we should be hearing names. We should be 100%. And that's the part that just gets me so angry.